that legal and political change is required in relation to queer issues. There's definitely several things that need to be done in regards to children, i.e. there needs to be access for lesbians to IVF as well as access to adoption for same-sex couples. At the same time, I think that there should be same-sex marriage. There are arguments both for and against that, but it's something that needs to happen. But those all are sort of issues along the road when you still have a differential age of consent in New South Wales, where it's 16 for heterosexuals and lesbians but 18 for gay men. So that's something that really needs to be changed first. So
is a chance for queer students in the uni to have a higher visible profile, so that other students can see that there are queer students on campus and that they help overcome homophobia is the main purpose of it, so that they can see we're here and we're queer and that we're very proud of it.
Pride Week for me is about basically celebrating and being out there and saying, we're gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, whatever, and being able to, say that openly with pride and have a good party doing it.
About Mardi Gras, okay, when I first came out, I actually thought Mardi Gras was the best thing. I wanted to go along and have a look. But maybe not so nowadays, because it plays so much on stereotypes and, just the body beautiful people walking down the street all the time. And, I don't know, I feel it's a good time to get with friends and maybe have a party or whatever and just associate. But whether or not actually going to the parade, I think, is a different matter. I know that maybe I'd probably never go to the Mardi Gras parade again. I'd just rather go have a barbecue or a party at a friend's house.
I think I do feel safe in publicly identifying as being gay or as being homosexual in Canberra, in Australia. The environment here is pretty good. I mean, people are very understanding, particularly in a university environment. You get quite a large, diverse range of people and backgrounds, and for the most part, I haven't had any concerns or hassles. In terms of a public space, there's always a concern. I mean, holding hands with a same-sex guy walking through, say, the centre of the city, it could be a bit of concern. I'm a bit reluctant to, but really, I don't think I'd be. There's not much chance of being harassed or of being even confronted by it. So, yeah, I think it's pretty good at the moment.
Not as much as they should be, but they are getting better. I think there's definitely a move towards people being a little bit more accepting and a little bit... so I think I prefer the word acceptance rather than tolerant. People are tolerant, but they're not always accepting, and I think there needs to be a move towards acceptance rather than just tolerating that we're around.
I think most of the Australian population is fairly tolerant. I've never actually run into any discrimination. I know in some places it's still fairly intolerant, like in country towns, but in the cities, especially in Canberra, I think we're all fairly tolerant, so yeah.
I think that legal and political changes are very important, because although politicians and judges and so on can't dictate how society thinks about issues, at the same time they do have an obligation not just to reflect the views of the people who elect them, but also to set an example as leaders. I think that people do take notice of what politicians say and the stances they take, much as we all say that politicians are idiots. I think what they say does get noticed. And so yes, I think they have a big responsibility to take a certain amount of leadership role in affecting social change.
For me, Jellybase is about a social club. There is the political side of the ANU, which does push for equal rights, for the rights of same-sex couples and same-sex marriages, that kind of thing. Jelly Babies is separate. It's the social group, and it's a chance for people who are attracted to same sex, or even just their friends, be they straight or queer or lesbian, gay, whatever, to come and join in with social kind of interaction. It's a chance to meet people. It's also a chance for those who haven't seen too many positive role models of homosexual people to come together and to see that people are normal, that they do lead normal lives, they have normal relationships, and they can have normal careers. It's a chance to come together, and I think it's an important thing.
Jelly Babies Club is in part to provide a social network for students who are queer, to give them an opportunity to meet other queer people and other queer students, and in part to increase the visibility of queers on campus. It's important that we're out there, we're seen, that people realise that we're there and we're not going away.
Have you decided where to go fill in that form or not yet?
You videotaping this?
I know. It's like fully, just like, and then, come on. And every single like week you could release a new badge. I'm starting a passions club. Yes. No?
I do think it is important that politicians, stars, and also public people are out of the closet, because it helps the society to believe that just because you are homosexual, that you're still the same as a heterosexual person. Because in this society and in this world there are still a lot of ignorant and closed-minded people, and by them being open to express their sexuality and still do their job, it doesn't make the homosexual people as a minority anymore, and that they're not different to anyone else, and that being homosexual is a natural thing.
In Australia, in Canberra at the moment, I'm out to my parents and out to my family, out to my friends, and it's not really an issue, I guess. It's nothing that I'm scared of. I don't need to kind of hide behind it. Some people do. Some of my friends do. They have real difficulty in being out and being themselves. So, but for Canberra, for myself, as it is, I feel pretty relaxed, pretty able to do it. I have lived in Sydney, I've lived in Melbourne, and there are areas which I would not be publicly or openly gay. It's just too much of a risk. There is the risk of persecution or of that kind of thing. But today, here, now, I'm pretty comfortable. It's good.
Over recent years, I think the public attitude towards homosexuality in Australia has changed somewhat, but I think it also depends on what area of Australia you are actually talking about, whether or not you're talking about rural areas or urban societies. I think in rural areas there's still huge problems with homosexuality, and people find it really hard to deal with, mainly I'd say because it's not actually portrayed a lot in local media, whereas in urban society maybe more so it's in the media. And also I guess people in rural areas don't exactly show their emotions, whatever sexuality, whatever walk of life they come from. But I find that in urban societies people are more relaxed to show how they feel, and therefore people actually get maybe used to the idea of homosexuality being there, whereas in rural societies people are often confronted by things that they don't consider normal. Okay, yep.
Australia's pretty reasonable by world standards. I think there's lots of countries in the world like Holland or Sweden, those sorts of places which are a lot more tolerant and a lot more accepting. But I think Australia, compared to say a lot of Asian or African or even North American countries, is quite a tolerant nation when it comes to gay and lesbian issues.
I could say that they both are and aren't tolerant with homosexuality. I think a lot of people are becoming more tolerant, especially in the cities like Sydney, because there is such a vibrant gay community that they just, if they don't accept it, then it's in their face and they can't
like, get away from it. But at the same time, there are a lot of people, especially from the country and from more conservative backgrounds, who are very homophobic and just, they're not accepting or tolerant of homosexuality.
I do think that society would be more accepting of homosexuals and homosexuality if there were legal and political changes, because with laws as they currently are, with heterosexual marriage privileged and with lack of immigration rights, lack of superannuation and tax benefits for same-sex couples, it simply perpetuates stereotypes. It perpetuates the belief that same-sex couples don't deserve the same rights as heterosexual couples, and that kind of discrimination is okay. I recognise that changes to laws aren't going to change attitudes overnight, but I think for as long as laws aren't challenged, that people have reason to think that their attitudes are okay and that their prejudices are actually accepted and actually perpetuated by society.
The government, to a large extent, is still influenced by the church, the Catholic Church, and they're obviously against same-sex relationships and transgenderism and anything else you can really think of. So yeah, that's actually a real problem. Yeah, marriages, again, it's not legally recognised, and you'll also find that when things aren't legally recognised, people's attitudes are also affected by that. Like if two people of the same sex are getting married, there's not the big hoo-ha that there is with a heterosexual couple getting married. Like, you know, oh, my darling daughter's getting married, you all have to come, we have to have a huge wedding, you know, spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it, invite every person we know. Or, you know, my lesbian sister's getting married and, oh yeah, they're having a little commitment ceremony and I might turn up. But, you know, it's not a big deal because, you know, that's not a valid relationship, obviously. So, yeah, I think that legal recognition in all areas for same-sex relationships is really important, also in changing the attitudes of the community. But, you know, it's like, is it the chicken or the egg which came first? Do you need to change those attitudes and then change the laws accordingly? Or where do you start? So that's obviously a question that...
AIDS for me, it really is still a concern. It is something which I've heard quite a lot of material about. There's quite a lot of education available, and there's still quite a lot of people advocating for condoms and for safe sex practices and that kind of thing. For the most part, I'm not that concerned in terms of the partners I choose. I always will be safe. I'm never going to have unsafe sex. Yeah, there is a fear of it. But hopefully in the next 10, 20 years there'll be research will go into a solution, finding a cure for it. Yeah.
Options for Women congratulates the Honorary Wayne Berry on his efforts to reform abortion legislation in the ACT. Woo!
The pro-choice rally today is to support Wayne Berry's legislation to decriminalise abortion, to take it off the criminal code, so therefore it'll be legal in the ACT. I think that's long overdue. I think it's a draconian, ridiculous law that insults women and makes them feel as if they're not capable of making decisions about their own bodies. I'm not pro-abortion, I'm pro-choice. Women should be able to decide whether they want children and when they want children, and if they don't, they shouldn't have to have them, and men shouldn't have to make laws. They shouldn't be able to make laws about what women choose to do with their bodies. Because if men had babies, then we wouldn't even be having this protest.
It's about failing to recognise that that woman is a person. Because women are not just vessels. Women are not just wombs. We have hearts and minds and thoughts and ethics, and we can decide. And that's fundamentally about what decriminalisation of abortion in the ACT is about. Recognising that women who need to choose to have an abortion are not criminals.
Really important area of study
because it provides a space in which women can be studied as women. A lot of other disciplines, say political science or history within an arts framework, is quite, because of the nature of history, because of the nature of a patriarchal society, is very much focused on the actions of men. I think it's really important that there is a space within university study that is devoted to the study of women and of the interaction, like the power plays of gender within society.
And I think that what feminism is an awareness of the fact that situations are different for men and women, and that you can't ignore these differences, and that they need to be addressed the world over. Also with an awareness of the fact that different women have different concerns